Last spring, I accidentally sat next to a strange woman who told me about the Bushwick Book Club Atlanta and said the book selected was Frankenstein. And before I thought better of it, I just said, Frankenstein is one of my favorite books. I just shouted it out. And then I immediately regretted it because then she was like, okay, well then come and tell us why. My three favorite books are Beloved by Toni Morrison, Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And when you're a writer, it's really hard to pick three favorite books. Frankenstein is still one of my favorite books to this day. If you meet my mother, she will introduce me using these words. This is my daughter, Nikki. She was supposed to be a doctor. I was supposed to be a doctor when I was 17 years old, specifically a surgeon. I am not afraid of bones or blood. I am not frightened by sickness or dying. I like to fix things that are broken, and I want to know what's on the inside. If you bought a whole chicken 30 years ago, inside was a plastic packet containing the innards. My mother would not let me cook. That was her domain. But she would give me the sharpest knife and a cutting board so I could dissect the small heart and the tiny liver of a chicken in hopes of me understanding. If you meet my daughter today, she will tell you that I am a witch. She is a teenager, suddenly an adult and all-knowing. I got a text from her at the high school a few weeks ago. Mom, send Juno the recipe for the cure. She's sick. I do have a cure, and the recipe goes like this. 1 tablespoon vinegar, 1 tablespoon honey, 3 ounces of water. Take it like a shot 3 times a day. It is better if you have cayenne, and better still if you have ground turmeric or ginger. But I leave it with honey and vinegar because Juno is just a girl in Decatur, Georgia, and I don't know what kinds of things they have in her house. The next day, the girl is better, and my daughter is smug. I told her you were a witch, and it is true. I was supposed to be a doctor. In the time between dissecting chicken parts as a child and tonight, I have not become a doctor. I studied human biology. I studied animal biology. I have cut open with grief and reverence these things. A frog, the eyeball of a lamb, a fetal pig, a shark. My mother bought me a microscope one Christmas, not a play microscope, but a real working one, so that I could see things that are not normally seen. I looked at algae. I looked at the veins in a leaf. I was supposed to be a doctor. My mother will still tell you this today. In fact, she lives on Claremont, and the other day when I saw her, she introduced me to one of the other residents where she lives, and she said, this is my daughter, Nikki. She was supposed to be a doctor. She's been saying that for 40 years, but I am not. My mom, that mother, that creator, that monster, she also did something else when I was a child, something more strange than handing me chicken gizzards. She bought me a typewriter, much more dangerous than a knife. You have to understand, I have cut open hearts by day with sun streaming into the kitchen. I have saved earthworms from the hot sidewalk so they could survive in the grass. I have raked dead birds from our perfectly green lawn into the leafy compost in the back of the yard. It was always so bright, but at night, in the darkness, I read and I wrote. My first year of college, I had the chance to see live surgery. There were a lot of dislocated bones and compound fractures that needed repair, and sometimes it was just a wound, gashes that required stitches. I'd watch some doctor stitch up some skin, and then weeks later, I was trained enough to be able to remove them. I was supposed to be a doctor, and that same first year of college, I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I did not know that Frankenstein was just a man and not a monster. To my surprise, he was a doctor, Dr. Frankenstein. Maybe he shouldn't have become a doctor. Books may have been safer for him. I did not understand grief then the way I do now, but I did understand that invincible feeling of thinking you could do no wrong, and that's what Victor thought, and that worried me. I did understand the feeling of watching people from the shadows and wishing they might like me despite what I looked like. I would think back on that boy in 9th grade who would hold my hand but would not kiss me. I knew why, even if he pretended he didn't. Dr. Frankenstein made a being, a creature who watched a family with longing, who felt that blindness was a gift, a creature who wanted love. That I understood, and that made me sad. Every good horror story has two villains, the monster and the human. My mother is not a monster at all, not fully. She's like Dr. Frankenstein. She tried to make me one way, but when the spirit of life touched me, I was not quite right. I still like to fix things. I will soak your twisted ankle in a cure. I will break your burning fever with another potion. My hands are strong. I like to massage away your pain. Could be in your feet, your shoulders. You might be carrying the pain of grief in your body like shattered stones, and they can be melted away with care. I like to write things and write things with my words, with my own monsters. Children are such things. Stories are the best place for monsters. I like them best on the page and not in the world, but I cannot fix everything. I was supposed to be a doctor. I found the power of creation with my potions and my imagination. I am a witch. I am a monster. And I'm the only one who says that. And the truth is, we are either monsters or miracles. One is an accident made wrong. The other is an accident made right. And we should be both. Monster and miracle, by day, by night. Thank you.